Hey. Thank you for waiting so patiently. We appreciate you, our Golasso America YouTube community, you beautiful bastards. Hit like and subscribe, and let's get after it. Hi, hello, and welcome to your favorite average to good podcast. Call it what you want. I'm Jimmy Conrad alongside Tony Meola, and we are doing a little recap of the U.S. men's national team's big win against Venezuela, the opening game of 2025 for Mauricio Pochettino and his players. Big Tones, let's start with, well, I should say this. It was 4-1 in favor of the U.S. 3-1 in favor of the U.S. I was trying to give Miljevic, he had a penalty saved. We'll get into that in a second. But let's talk about the starting 11, okay? Where were you on this? Were you surprised? No traditional six in the starting 11. And actually, let me just read the starting 11, Big Tones, and we'll get into it. Patrick Schulte in goal. Shaq Moore on the right side. Got Campbell and Miles Robinson, center backs. And you have Max Arfson on the left side, okay? There's been a 4-2-3-1. We got Jack McGlynn and Ben Kramaski in the holding six positions. Neither one of them a traditional six. You have Matko Miljevic. He is playing the 10. Gutirrez on the left. Caden Clark on the right. And Ajimang up top. That was the 11. Were there any surprises for you in this one, Big Tones?
Well, you and I did this roster yesterday, right? And I think if I'm right, Jimmy, we had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We had 8 of these guys. We didn't have Miljevic in it. We didn't have Kramaski in this, and I don't think we had George Campbell in this, if I'm not mistaken. I could be off by 1, but I think that's what we had when we did morning footy yesterday. I'm really not surprised by any lineup. Word is that we're getting is that Mauricio Pochettino is going to try and see as many players as possible during this thing. I personally like it. It's a January camp. Results don't mean anything. I'm glad that they won. We'll talk about the opponent and where that all fits in and some individual performances. But in general, I want to see as many players because this, for me, and I'll reiterate what I said, I guess, when we were on last Thursday or whatever it was. The days are running into each other right now here in Stamford. I want to see individuals that are comfortable being in this moment, right? I want to see individuals more than I want to see the team and because I don't think it's that easy to put a team together like this with all let's say second team players and then think it's going to be flowing. Having said that, I saw a heck of a lot more free flowing football than I thought I was going to see in this January camp. You tell me, because I'm trying to think. I always feel like we play Slovakia and like teams like that. And the games there's never any flow to the game. There's never any rhythm. There's never any 4 or 5 passes strung together. It's kind of, let's be fair, they're ugly games sometimes. This didn't look like, there were moments, of course, it's January. These guys are just coming in preseason for the most part on this U.S. team. It didn't seem like an ugly game. Now, keep in mind, I was sitting here watching multiple games because I was working the match day broadcast. So maybe I missed a little bit, and I'm sure I did, but it didn't seem that bad to me. Let me say this. It didn't seem January campish to me.
That's a great way to say it.
More.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think there was a sharpness to the way that we played and wanted to play. When I think about the last January camp, it just felt a little bit more going through the motions in some capacity. I don't think the guys were maybe as fit or maybe had as much purpose. I think with each January camp that gets closer to the start of a World Cup, the intensity ramps up and it ramps up and it ramps up. And so now you're 18 months out. This is pretty much the last look for any of these guys. They're trying to get into potentially, hopefully, if they played well enough on both sides of the ball and they impress the coaching staff and training as well and how they fit in with the group. Maybe they get another look down the line, maybe not in March, but maybe for the Gold Cup, right? This is it. This is probably it for the majority of these guys. So that adds a layer of intensity and concentration and focus. And I'm sure trainings were getting after it. And you have a coach who's also demanding that. And it showed. I thought we were trying to be the aggressor right from the get-go. And before, actually, I should take one step back. One of my big moments or favorite parts of this game was how cool it was to see a lot of guys get their first ever cap for the U.S. men's national team. These guys have been working forever to get this chance. Whether they take their chance or not, they're getting one. And that's a proud moment for any player to go through the process and get a sniff, whether you think they deserve it or not. They're there. They have worked hard for that. And so it's cool when you put on that jersey and you represent your country. There's no better feeling. And so I'm excited for those guys to have that. And I don't want to lose that. I don't want to lose that because it's easy to trash this and trash that and whatever it is. I will say that I know there's a lot of calls for making it a U23 camp, play the younger players. I just hope that people don't stop believing in you, no matter what age you are. Like that we're not, there's room to have, if we have some space, to see some players that might be coming into it a little bit later. They deserve a look as well. And I think Ajimong's a perfect example. Sets up the penalty today, ends up scoring, and 24 years old. He might just be finding that confidence at the right time. Okay, sorry, that was a bit of a tangent. Now let's get to the game timeline. So you have a penalty that's drawn by Ajimong way early. It's like a minute and a half into the game, Big Tones. And then what I thought was interesting is that Miljevic steps up, and it looks like Jack McGlynn's going to take the ball from him. And I wondered, I guess we'll find out afterwards, if McGlynn was the guy that's actually supposed to take the penalties. And then you have Matko who steps up and like, I got it.
Kick controversy.
Yeah, right.
January
camp controversy. And so I was like, I wonder. I just wondered. That's all it came in. And then he hit the worst penalty and it got saved. You're like, great. Then the 37th minute, Jack McGlynn scores an absolute peach of a goal. Whew. That guy's got an incredible left foot. 2 minutes later, we take advantage of a fortuitous bounce that falls right to Ajimong as he's going in behind. I thought he did really well to take the space that was being given to him by the Venezuela defender, and then he slots it between the goalkeeper's legs. Very good goal. After that, though, I thought we gave up too many chances to Venezuela at that last 5, 6, 7 minutes, including injury time of the first half, where we got to manage the game. We're up 2-0, get to halftime, and be in charge the whole time. So that's something I would want to look at and talk about a little bit more. We score again, 64th minute. Miljevic does a great job reading the pass, cutting it out, starting the transition, gets it back from McGlynn, and then hits a peach of a volley off the half bounce into the goal. Very good goal. And then he got subbed off right after. And then the game got a little choppy because there's like 4 or 5 subs. But that's ultimately the timeline. They score later off of a corner kick where our marking, of course, could have been a little bit better. Again, maybe a little bit of a drop off. You want your leaders to step up no matter what the situation is, no matter who you're playing against. You can only play You can only play the team that's in front of you.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Right? These guys can't play Spain. I'm sure they would love to play against Spain's A team or Argentina's A team or whatever it is. You can only play the team that's in front of you. So they need to be evaluated as such. Are they making good enough soccer decisions on both sides of the ball to warrant consideration for something in the future? And do they fit in with the intangibles that you want to see from your players within the group? And can you visualize them being a part of the A team as well? Obviously, that's all why the coaching staff gets paid the big bucks. But those are the things that I'm looking at. And sorry, I just went off on a lot of tangents.
Yeah, no.
That's what I do. It's part of my charm.
And we said this as well, their job, and no, you never take anything away from the guy who gets his first cap, right? Like that jersey's going up on the wall. They're going to wash it. It's going up. It's going in the frame. It's going up on the wall for the rest of their life. And everyone who has a problem and craps on January camp, by the way, I'm just going to remind you, if you got called in, you would go. And if you played, you would put the jersey on your wall too, right? It's a national team jersey. So let's get that out of the way. I think their job is to give Mauricio Pochettino something to think about, right? For next camp or for a future camp. Who knows if Mauricio Pochettino is going to be here after the World Cup? Like there's these managers, they have this database in their head, right? And the best way to get this information is having guys in your camp where you can see them train, see them on a daily basis, see the things they do well, the things they don't do well. I think we're going to see more players in match day 2. But with today, I'm just looking, and again, I was looking on an iPad the entire time, literally walking around CBS with an iPad, watching this game. Ajimong, there's an intrigue for me about him. He's a different profile. He's a different type of player that we don't have. There's a cleanliness about his game, but a sloppiness about his game as well. That's like attractive to me. There's something. He's lanky. He's big. He likes to do couple step overs. He's effective though. Effective in a way we don't have. I think he made a case for himself. Jack McGlynn clearly made a case for himself. He continues to make a case for himself in soccer. I don't think he's going to be around Major League Soccer all that much longer, but I feel like we've been saying that. Like guys like him, they've given Mauricio Pochettino something to think about. Now I think next game we'll see more of Luna. We'll see more of other guys that I think it's interesting how Pochettino set this starting lineup up. I'm guessing, Jimmy, that these are, based on what he said, these are all the guys that earn their positions from the day they came into camp to the first game. Like these are the guys that earn starts for Pochettino.
Yeah, and I love it. I think what's interesting, though, is they didn't start a 6, and I thought we both expected to see Diego Luna, right? Obviously, a lot of hype coming into it, had a good year with RSL and MLS Young Player of the Year and so on and so forth. He didn't start, came off the bench, and he had a couple moments, but I hope that he gets to start the next one because it's easier, I think, in a creative position making. I'm probably making excuses for him at this point, but I didn't think he made as much of an impact as I know that he's capable of. But what I thought was interesting is that there was no 6. Okay, so you have McGlynn and Kramaski who they were asked to basically like Miljevic, he was the one that was pressuring the other one. This is without the ball. So Ajiman goes and presses the initial center back. And then Miljevic is the guy that's going to go step to the next one. And then the 2 central midfielders now are asked to go step to the 6s or 8s of the other one. And we leaving that gap right in front of our back 4. It's very aggressive and very risky. And we got caught on it once or twice in transition. And one of them led to Kramaski getting a yellow card where he bit pretty hard and the guy rolled him and he had to pull his shirt to slow down the counter. Now I like the intensity of it, and I love that as long as we're all working together and thinking the same things at the same time, that's ultimately what I think Pochettino will be looking at and evaluating. But it is a bit risky. And it worked out today. Both of those guys can sit it and play out of that. It's less about with the ball, it's more without it. And so I was very curious to see how we were going to move as a group. And I thought we looked pretty organized for a January camp game in particular. Now to get back to Ajibang really quick. There was a moment, I wrote this down, 33rd minute. Venezuela's finally got some sustained pressure. They've got the ball. They're in our half. We're under it a little bit. We've dropped off to the top of our box. A little bit of scrambling mode in there. And we win it, and we play the ball into Ajibang, and he got somebody on his back. He's got a holding midfielder that's going to come and close him down. He's got somebody else coming. And that's where I feel like if he could have held that up, Tones, then he's differentiated himself it's almost an impossible ask, right? The pass was fine. It was just the situation. He was under it. But if he could somehow get out of that situation and hold the ball up for us and allow us to transition, despite how difficult that was, that is how you're going to get into the first team, right? Of course, he's got to go do the business that he's doing. Off the ball, he's got to pressure. Can he make those runs in behind? He got his goal. He was dangerous. He drew a penalty. Like, he's ticking a whole bunch of boxes. But so are the other guys that are already on the A team, right? They do a lot of things and they do them well. Can you add that one other thing? That's the only way that I think you start to really be part of the conversation. And so I noted that, like, that was that if he could have just said, I did everything right, like every single facet of the game, I was good. And I thought the hold-up play under pressure could have been a little bit better from him. Am I nitpicking? Yeah. You're goddamn right. I'm nitpicking, but we have to nitpick these guys if we're gonna leave the opponent isn't the best opponent in the world that we played against. So you have to nitpick them at a level where if we're gonna really see them at the A team, then they have to take care of the small details. And I thought with McGlynn, probably my man of the match, scored a great goal, got an assist. He finally found a rhythm in the game as it opened up, but still there are times where he's just playing too slow. Like his rhythm, if I'm snapping my fingers, it's just like bop, bop. And sometimes it just needs to be a little bit quicker. So that would be my ask of him if I was going to nitpick McGlynn.
Yeah, with Ajiman, the one thing we got at him was a goal, right? And in the end, how are those guys judged? They're judged by scoring goals, number 9s, right? We talk about this all the time. But when they don't score goals, to your point, let's think of Lautaro Martinez right now at Inter. He struggled over the last 2 months to score goals. He's getting some goals now. But what does everybody say about Lautaro Martinez when he's not scoring goals? Hold up play. He turns players. He makes space for Thuram up top. And I'm not comparing players. I'm just giving an example of what it looks like when you're not scoring goals, especially a guy like that who's been a prolific goal scorer his entire career. So if you're not getting the goals, you got to do all those other things. And to your point about nitpicking, Jimmy, these guys who have ambitions of making the national team for the 2026 World Cup, they have to do everything right. Right? They can't be as good as somebody that's already played in the World Cup. They got to be better than that person,
Right.
or I should say somebody that's currently in the first team.
And to add to that very quickly, they have to be better than them at the details.
That's
Right?
my
Like
point. Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
the only
Exactly.
way you're going to level up over somebody else. It's the details. To lean on something that I thought I did well coming through and took advantage of my January camps. I just tried to talk and communicate with the players in front of me as much as possible. I tried to put out fires before they started. I played as simple as I possibly could. And I knew that if I made the game easier for everybody around me, the more of those players would be like, I like playing with Jimmy. I like playing with Jimmy. And at some point, that's getting back to Bruce Arena. And they're like, all right, cool. The team likes playing with Jimmy. So you have to, how are you adding to the formula or the group that's already there? And so I would be studying the shit out of everybody that's above me on the pecking order. What do they bring to the table? Great. I got to match that. And now I got to bring something else that's going to help the team maybe take that next step. And it's not always on the field. Sometimes it's off the field too, right? You have to obviously be a good teammate. So
yeah,
there's a lot of factors there, but
yeah,
it's the details.
Sorry, Jimmy. There's still steps for Patrick Agyemang to go, right? He's still, although he's 24, he's still young in sort of soccer years, right? Not having played at the highest level. Last year being his first real pro year where he gets an opportunity, scores 10 goals in the league. He's just got a different profile, and he's a guy that I don't think we should give up on with regards to seeing how he fits in at some point. Jack McGlynn's been doing it for a little while. I think sometimes you look at him and go, he's playing too slow, but he has like a slow rhythm to his game, like a calm rhythm to his game where he never, and I've seen him for a long time, right? I've watched the kid since he was like 14 years old. He never looks rushed. He doesn't play that way. I think it's part of the beauty of him, but also, as you know, you have to pick up the pace of the game sometimes, right?
Right.
So but again, that's part of what he has to learn as a young player, right? And all of these younger guys, like if you told me like Miles Robinson today, who was okay, they didn't have a ton to do in the game. Like if you told me like he played too slow, like that shouldn't be for Miles Robinson because so many years under his belt. I don't feel that about him. I'm using it because he's one of the older players. But, some of these young guys, Kromowski's an interesting one to me because I've watched him grow at Inter Miami. He didn't have a great game today, but there's something about him. He reminds me of Tanner Tessman in a lot of ways. His body, his gait. He's got some minutes at the number 6 position. I'm guessing that he's the guy that they said, okay, when we got to close the position down in front of the back four, you're kind of the guy that's got to do it. Because he's done that before, and I think he has that in him. He's a guy that there's still a lot of upside for him. Not an incredible performance today by any stretch, but another guy I think that we will see in the future at some point. Look, this particular national team, Jimmy, if you go down, the midfield's really hard to break into, right? Because this year alone, you've added Tessman, you've added Aiden Morris, you've added Busio. Right. And I don't know if I'm missing anyone in the midfield, but in those positions, that's on top of Tyler Adams and Weston McKennie. And I still think Yunus Musa, that's his best position in the middle of the field. Although today he played out wide for Milan. We'll get to that later. So you're in a really crowded part of the field right there for me.
Yeah. It's going to be
Cardoso, Johnny Cardoso too.
Cardoso's
Don't forget him.
too. Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
He played 90 for Betis today. Didn't go well for that team. They ended up losing. But so what's interesting is with Jack McGlynn, let's use him kind of through the filter we just been talking about. He has something special. That left foot is silky. That is a silky left foot. The best piece of evidence is his goal from 25 yards out. He hit a switch to somebody's foot like 60 yards away on a dime. Perfect weight.
That's his thing, man. He does it every week. That's his thing.
I mean, I'm sitting here watching the game by myself so I can focus. I don't want it. No family around. I got to watch. I was like, I gave the old chef's kiss. What a swing. And he makes it look easy. And so he has something, right? He also can sit on set pieces and he's a left footer that can hit a nice, good ball. And okay, how maybe there is something that Mauricio Pochettino says we could maybe use that in certain situations in the future. That gives him that little bit of something different, a differentiator. So that's just an example of that. Now, you brought up the back line. We haven't really talked about the back line. I thought Max Arfston was solid, tried to pick his spots when to go forward, tried to combine a little bit when he could. Maybe not as I don't know. There's really not much to say. I didn't think he crushed it, but I don't think he hurt himself either, right? It's one of those. Shaq Moore on the same side. They didn't really see anything. Now, George Campbell, the guy looks the part. That guy is got some presence. He's got confidence. He wants the ball. And I love that about him. His decision-making on the ball, he turned over a lot of balls that I don't think a center back should. And he ran himself into some trouble. He's going to get better from that. So he probably maybe merits another look. I don't know if he's going to get it in this camp. It sounds like Zimmerman and Ream are going to start the next one. But I wonder if he does or when, or if he can maintain some good consistency with his club team. So there was some things I liked defensively. I thought he was sound, but in some of the other areas, I still up for debate on all right, he needs to improve on his passing in particular. Now some of his passes were great. Some of them he was throwing in grenades to some of his teammates, and they were bringing him down and making that pass look a lot better than it probably deserved to be. And then I thought Miles Robinson, as the leader, as the captain, there were two moments in the 11th minute. This is me. I'm doing my Charlie Davies, writing down minutes and stuff. This is what Charlie does. We held a really nice tight line. We didn't drop too deep. We weren't too high, and we caught Venezuela offside. That doesn't just happen, right? That there's some talk there. There's some ideas either from Pochettino or from the guys themselves. That's one of the hardest things to do, especially in a January camp where you've got guys that are all thrown together. You got about a week to figure it out, and if you can manage a good, nice, tight line, that's something that I'm looking at as a former center back. And it happened again 5 minutes later. Now, as the game opened up, I got a little bit more disappointed that we got maybe caught in transition, that we couldn't manage. We went up 2-0, and then the game got away from us. I thought Venezuela should have scored in the next 5 or 6 minutes before halftime. A couple good opportunities. That's where I wanted to see more of Miles, more of his presence, and George as well. I know he's new, but if you're going to make your imprint right away, you got to be organizing, getting people back, getting our team shape good. Get to halftime 2-0, and then if we have any issues, we can talk about it at halftime and then adapt accordingly. And then he made a tackle. Venezuela were very direct to start the second half, and Miles Robinson did a nice job of tracking somebody from behind and kind of a make-or-break tackle. It's like a tackle and a red card, or if he misses, but he ended up getting the ball. And so it was nice to see that recovery speed, because we know that Miles maybe had lost that, or thought maybe he had lost it with the Achilles injury, but it was nice to see that he had a little bit of that burst, because that's going to help him too, because you can tell that Pochettino wants to be as aggressive as possible, and that's going to ask us to play a higher line. There are going to be moments where you're 1v1. So that's just kind of my evaluation on the back line in particular. And then up top, I think we talked about Ajimong as well, but yeah, I could talk about this all day. I love it. I love the game. I love hanging out with you, Tones. I love our audience. I love our community. And guess what? We're going to take our first break and call it what you want. When we come back, we're going to talk about it a little bit more. I'm excited. Don't go anywhere.
The clock never stops. Relive the greatest moments with uninterrupted highlights and more.
It's Gareth Bale! Ronaldo! Wonderful goal!
On the UEFA Champions League channel. Streaming free.
All right, welcome back into Call It What You Want. We are recapping the U.S.'s first game of 2025, 3-1 win over Venezuela. And we had some performances that are worth talking about. I think the one that we want to get into, I guess, Tones, let's start here. Before we get into players, I want to talk about Mauricio Pochettino. This is his 5th game in charge. He's got 4 wins, 1 loss, of course, to Mexico in Mexico. Not easy. But were you impressed with what you saw and what he got out of this particular group? And do you think he did enough to know what he's working with? And 90 minutes isn't a lot, but he had that week to 8 days, 9 days to really evaluate the group in different settings, right? And different asks at training, and then obviously getting pushed in the game. Do you think he got what he needed out of this from the group?
Yeah, I would. The one thing that I'm impressed with, Jimmy, so however many games we're in with Pochettino now, what's the 5th game? Yeah, his teams are organized, man. No matter what they do, no matter what tactics. And when we saw the crazy Anthony Robinson to the middle of the field against Jamaica in game 2 of that Nations League. What was that, quarterfinals? Like, and they never looked unorganized, like in the games. 5 games now, and at a minimum, they guys seem to know where they're going. They're not thinking about things. They're reacting properly. They press when they want to press, and it's not always perfect with the press, but they never. There was one, you mentioned the tackle, right, with Miles Robinson recovering. Like, there was 1 or 2 times where they got a little disorganized. But for the most part, when the team has the ball, we call in front of your face, right? When you're sat a little bit deeper and it's in front of you, you can see their movement, trying to jump into lanes, trying to cut lanes down, and that's all. The one thing we would expect from Pochettino, right, is he would want this defensive line to be solid. I mean, the guy was a center back, right? Like, a guy. This is the part that you take pride in, like. When I coach, like, I would hate to have a bad goalkeeper in my team that can't organize. Like, it's just the first place you look at center backs. We got Pochettino here, and you would imagine he and his staff are going to get this thing organized. His teams always are. They've always been. And then he adds the attacking part of it to the game. That's still the hardest part to come. But to your question about did he get what he wanted, I would imagine he's gotten you want to see guys in games, but he's gotten even as much as you're going to get over what it's been, like 10 days in camp now, or however many days it's been total. Like, that's a lot of time to see a national team, because remember, when you come in for national team games, in general, you're coming in 3 days before a game. You're hardly training. You hardly see the guys. You get the first one is generally guys coming off playing somewhere, and it's a recovery, and you're trying to ram all tactics down their throat and video down their throat because you don't want them running around. He's had time to have like a preseason with these guys and see how they work, and the guy's smart. We know that, and he's building that database, as I like to call it, in his head of what every one of these players is. Today, what he's probably looking for is a little bit of reinforcement of what he saw over the last, 10 days. I want to know that Patrick Agyemang is the guy that he spoke about in the press conference, right? I want to know that he's a guy that can be a little bit dangerous. Okay, he's an awkward profile. We're going to get another one, a slightly different profile, I would think, at some point, with Daryl Dike coming back. If he could stay healthy for an extended period of time, we'll get another guy that is a different profile at the 9, right? So he'll look at him the same way. Jack McGlynn, I'm sure he's got a profile on all of these guys. Arston is still one. I thought
he was solid. He was solid.
Yeah. He's good on the ball. I know that because I called a bunch of Columbus games this year. Spoke to Wilfred Nancy at MLS Media Day not too long ago about him. He was really excited for him, thought he deserved this call up in January camp. He'll be on the outside looking in probably in the end, but he's a different profile of a player. From Pochettino's standpoint, I just think it's just to get to know these guys. And again, I go back to, can somebody help us down the road? Miljevic, he's the one for me. We joked about the penalty kick thing today, right? A little bit. It was a minute and a half into the game, the foul, and then 3 minutes into the game, he misses the penalty kick. He ends up getting a goal. I didn't think he was good on the day. He's the one guy I have no profile on, right? Because all we know is that he had some problem in MLS, or whatever league he was playing in 2 years ago. Then he goes down to Argentina and things don't work out with his club, and he's without a club. I'm sure Pochettino has millions of reports on him from his people in Argentina. He calls him to national team camp. I don't know that he's a different profile from what I saw today. And of course, it's kind of harsh to judge on one game, but from anyone we have in that position, right?
Do they have the same agent? How does he get into this camp?
I have that. It's a mystery to me. I have no. But
are they family members? Is he a cousin?
He was in Argentina. I mean, Pochettino probably picked up the phone to.
I know he did play. He did play at Newcastle, which is
right to 10 guys and go, hey, give me something on the guy, right? Like give me, and he heard enough to call him into a camp. But I don't know that just seeing his profile today, because I'll be honest, other than a video they showed when he was, was it Montreal he was in when all of this happened?
Montreal, and then
he
wasn't playing, so he went and played in an indoor league in Montreal.
Yeah, under another name or something.
Name.
They showed a video. They showed a
mess.
video back then, and that was the first video I've ever seen of him. And then I didn't know where he went. And then today's the next time I saw him. So it might be a little bit unfair for me to judge him, but I didn't see from his movements, from an athleticism standpoint, like it's anything different than what we have. And a guy like him in that position, especially with the way Pochettino played with the first group when he had the two guys, Christian coming in and being underneath, like that's a tough spot to break in this group. But
well, what's interesting is when it was clear we were making subs, our first subs of the game, there were 4 of our guys on the sideline, and the ball never went out. And when you're a field player, like I bet I'm getting the hook, right? And then all of a sudden, Miljevic, he was kind of quiet, right? Didn't really show up all that much. It's like he was playing indoor for the national team. When you're playing indoor and one of your buddies is calling you off, and you're like, I'm still going. I'm going to still go. You don't want to look. But then all of a sudden you pick up. You kind of inherently know I got to pick it up here because I'm going to get yanked. So I feel like he found another level, knowing he was going to get a sub. He made a hell of a play to read a pass, kept the play going, and then ended up scoring a great goal and then gets subbed off right after. I'm like, that is peak indoor soccer right there. And so fair play to him for translating that time in Montreal indoor leagues to now the national team. Again, yeah, just an interesting name to have been called in. Clearly there's a relationship there, and okay, he missed his penalty, was terrible. But
that was a bad penalty. I'm glad you
that
brought
last
that up.
sequence. That last sequence is pretty sick. I'm not going to take anything away from him, and it's just kind of funny that he had to have known. They stood on the sideline for so long before they got subbed, and they probably knew they were only going to get 60 anyway.
That sucks when you're there, right? Like you're waiting to come in, you're going to make your debut, and the ball doesn't go out for like 4 minutes. You're like, geez, can it just go out a little bit? So yeah, I don't know. Yeah, the last sequence was good, by the way. And the other thing about him that I noticed, he's not afraid to he's not afraid to be available for the ball. He doesn't hide anywhere. He wants the ball. Maybe, I don't know if that's good. It works out well all the time or not, but yeah, he's not afraid to show for the ball and be part of the play.
Yeah. One of the things that I wanted to mention, and in the cloud of my excitement of the game and having a recap, right? We haven't had a recap in a while. I failed to mention that there were some really good sequences of play, and there was this really nice combination play. And when we started to get into like a 1 or 2 touch rhythm, which is what I think Pochettino wants to see. Obviously, there are moments when if you're isolated 1v1, yeah, go at that guy and try to make something happen. But it took us about 15 to 20 minutes to get our first one. And when we did, Venezuela couldn't get anywhere near us. And I thought we showed more of that in the second half. And I wanted to see more of that. Some good combination play, some good ideas, some in, back, and through. Okay, if it's tight in the middle, can we get it out wide? That decision-making started to happen a little bit sooner. Now, we have to take the opponent into consideration. Those guys didn't look anywhere near as organized as we did. As they got tired, the spaces got more and more open, and we exploited those spaces. So it's going to be harder to evaluate the guys without maybe the same type of pressure on them. But there was still some ideas that I saw from the group. There was some clear, get it back, let's play here. And that pumps me up because I thought it really lent itself to, if I'm Pochettino, the coaching staff, I'm like, look at these. Like this type of movement and pace and tempo and rhythm, the more that we can tap into that, especially after we win it, right after we win it, if we can get right there into that spot, it's going to be hard for any top teams to be able to hang with that. And I've already seen it with the top team, with our A team, but it was cool to see it play out here because we've seen January camp games in the past. I've been a part of some too, where it's hard to find that flow and rhythm. So I was encouraged that we had a little bit of that in the game. So that was exciting.
Sorry, Jim, don't you think that you get the idea that like this is how Pochettino trains them every day? I mean, we see like little clips on on social media that they put out, and everything is about playing really fast and getting into good spots and train like you play, right? And it seems like Pochettino, we keep hearing, we keep getting these subtle little clips from players about the intensity of the trainings, and we've gotten it from day one. So you're getting an idea of look, he's got principles, and you're going to play by those principles. And not everybody, and not every manager in the world wants to play at 100 miles an hour. It's not how everybody wants to play.
Right.
This is how he wants to play, and hopefully it suits the group, and I think it will when they get everybody together. I love these January camps. I love seeing you do. I know you do. You clearly have a history with the January camp. Quite honestly, I have a little bit of a history with the January camp because I don't think I would have made the 2002 team if I didn't come into January camp as fit as I was and as hungry as I was under Bruce. Now, I had already played in 2 World Cups and I already missed one, so it's a little different scenario.
He's flexing on us, everybody.
No, sorry if you thought that. But I'm saying, like, it's different. Look, Tim Ream's in January camp, right? Like, he's going to try and make a team. I don't know that he's a lock for 2026, but I love seeing these young players come through. The ones that have been privileged to put on a national team jersey, you always remember the first time you wore the jersey. Like because it never that will never. It's something that will never happen again. Your first game,
right?
It never happens again for the rest of your life. So look, I do hope, Jimmy, that the opponent, that Costa Rica, is better. I'm thinking they're going to be better than Venezuela was with the group of players that they have. And they have a new manager. El Piojo's there now, so I'd imagine they all want to impress in that camp. So let's hope, because the opponent wasn't great today, but it did serve as an exercise for our guys.
100%. I mean, again, I'm going to reemphasize, you can only play who's in front of you. Of course, I'm sure everybody would have liked to play at a tougher opponent, but it is what it is. And this is the kind of catch-22 to it, Tones. If you can't perform well against Venezuela's B or C team, then you're probably not going to get asked to come back at any point, right? So it's you got to perform against these guys.
That's fair.
If you can't perform against these guys, how can we trust you against the big dogs when everybody's watching in a World Cup, right? So all that needs to be taken into consideration. All right, 2 players, just because they started, we haven't talked about them yet. Caden Clark and Brian Gutirrez. Now, I thought Brian Gutirrez got a little tired as the game progressed, but there's something I like about his game. I can see him thinking the game. He's not just trying to go get the ball to get touches, right? He's trying to find those pockets of space. And I was watching him and just waiting for him to pop up and support the play. And I thought for a good portion of the game, he did a nice job of that. I don't know if he's a future, playing for our full national team. I don't know. But there is something about his game, and I like that he's thinking it, and he's trying to think 2 or 3 steps ahead. And he's looking around, he's evaluating, he's scanning, and I was impressed with that side of it. He got a little sloppy. Sometimes he got caught on the ball. He didn't have any ideas. Like, I could see when he ran into troubles when he didn't know what he wanted to do before the ball got to him, and couldn't play out of it. And Venezuela did a good job of doubling him. I just remember a couple instances where I wish he would have played a little quicker there. But overall, I like his game. There's something about him. I'm pulling for him, of course, but there's something about him. And I'm pulling for Caden Clark as well. My note on Caden Clark for this game is that he sometimes is trying to do too much when he should play simple. And then sometimes he's playing simple when he should try to do a little bit too much, right? And so it's just evaluating and understanding when that situation is. Where I want him to run it play. He's got some sauce to him, right? So I want him to kind of do his thing, and then that has to lead to something, though. Sometimes we have, and we've played with guys like this before, club and country, where they do some stuff and then they play backwards. And you're like, no, don't play backwards. Like, bring an attack to completion, as they say in coaching speak, right? Get a corner, get a shot, get a cross. Like, something has to happen from that movement that you're creating. You've gotten us 20 yards of real estate because you've made this run or you've taken somebody on. Don't just play backwards to play backwards. And I thought that maybe he could have just flip-flopped some of his decision-making. Now that would be my note on Caden Clark. I think both those guys are good. But yeah, hop in.
No, can I steal your notes on Caden Clark?
Sure.
Because I agree with you. Everything you just said there about Caden there. He's a decent player, but everything you said is just 100% spot on. Gutierrez, were you going to go on him, or are you going to?
No, you can take it. I know you've watched him play more than I have, probably. But I really liked his spatial awareness. I loved his spatial awareness.
I saw him come up under Rafa Wicki. I was covering the Chicago Fire for 3 years. I called their games, every single one of their games. And I watched him come up, and then he played 11 games that first year, and then he hurt his ankle. he would have played another 10 games, I think, that year. And then he comes back the next year, and he's starting to grow a little bit. He grew under Ezra Hendrickson a little bit. And then he didn't play. There were moments he didn't play under Frankie Klopas. And then remember, he was not allowed to go to the Olympics, to Olympic qualifying.
That's right.
And it was him and the goalkeeper, Chris Brady, at that time, were both called in Chicago. Those guys said, no, the club is more important and all of that stuff. I think he missed a big opportunity there. So he's kind of just, if you will, he's just kind of bursting onto the scene right now. And I like him a lot. There's still, he can score goals. He can dribble at players. He's courageous in the final third. He takes a lot of chances, right? And they don't all come off, but in the final third of the field, that's where you take chances. Like that's where you give guys the license to go, and you take the least chances in the first third, a few more in the middle, and as many as you want in the final third, and then some of it's got to come off, and it does for him. There's a big upside. He's another one of those players that I don't think will be at Chicago after this season. I think he has ambitions of going to Europe. I think, and I don't know if he signed a new contract. My memory says that his contract is in its last 2 years here, and he wants to go. And that's where I think he'll end up, and that's where I think he'll grow the most. Hopefully under Greg, he gets I'm guessing he's going to get an opportunity to play. I know they liked him. Obviously, they called him into national team with the Olympic team, and he just wasn't allowed to go. So he's got a little something. Again, though, Jimmy, those attacking players, especially in those front four or front three positions, depending on how Pochettino uses it, those are tough spots to break in.
Yeah,
but that doesn't mean we can't develop players. Give them a taste now, develop them. And we're going to have, by the way, as much as 2026 is so exciting for us, there's 2030 coming, and there's more to come. These are young players right now. These are really, really young players.
What's interesting about Brian, going to jump in about Brian Gutirrez, is that Mexico is reportedly trying to court him as well. And since these games are outside the FIFA window, we can't cap tie him. He can still be eligible to play for Mexico. And I wonder, to your point, if he consents that he doesn't have a future long term, I think he could probably look at himself and say maybe 2026 might be coming too soon for me. But 2030, looking ahead, projecting ahead, of course, Mexico is going to promise him the world. Now, whether they follow through with that or not is something different, but it's just something to keep an eye on. And Diego Luna is another one, right? So.
Yeah, I wanted to get to him because I got a text while I was on air before from one of my good buddies. I'm assuming he was watching the game. I don't know if he's watching here, but he asked me about Luna. He said, "What's up with Luna? Why doesn't he play more?" And we got to start asking some questions. I thought Diego Luna was going to start. That was one of the guys we had in our starting lineup yesterday, I think, right? We had him as the number 10. And I'm hoping that he starts against Costa Rica. But at some point, you're going to go, okay, they didn't take him for the
if he doesn't,
they didn't take him for the Olympic team. If he doesn't start here for 2 games, like, is it us that we don't have a good eye? Is it the coach? Or is it him? I don't know. Like, we're going to have to follow it. But I'm hoping that he's done enough to get a start against Costa Rica, because I really want to see him play. But if he doesn't, then me personally, I'm going to start asking questions about, am I seeing the player that I think I'm seeing? That's all I'm saying.
I also, and I mentioned this at the beginning, we've seen some good comments from you guys. Keep those coming. We'll throw them up on screen and try to address as many as we can as we're in the middle of our discussion. But when you're a creative player, there's just something to be said for like a Diego Luna or like a number 10. To being a super sub is hard, right? You're trying to jump into a game. The narrative of the game has been pretty much built, and now you either got to slow it down or speed it up. And yes, that's part of it. If he's going to fit into any team, Mexico or ours moving forward, he's going to have to probably come off the bench for a while until he can earn his stripes to be a number 1 guy. Okay. Just like he had to do at the club level as well. And so, but when you start a game, you can help dictate the flow. You can dictate the rhythm and narrative of how the game is going to be played. You're the string puller. It's a little bit harder to make that when teams are making 5-6 subs. And so I didn't really give him a rating in this particular game. he had some good moments, right? When he plays quick, when he sees the game, it unlocks things and we get moving and some moments in transition. I was like, all right, it's Diego Luna doing Diego Luna stuff. But overall, to your point, I would really like to see him start against Costa Rica just so we can decide. I know, again, it's not going to be a top team or whatever, but let's just see him be the guy that's really pulling the string.
But Jimmy, what I want to see is the manager, forget the opponent. I want to see that he convinced the manager that he should be starting in this next game, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's what I'm seeing. He does not control the opponent. They're going to play an opponent that's not going to be a full national team again, but still they've got something to play for. I want to see that he, just like I've said about Gio Reyna for years, and it's starting to get a little bit closer, it looks like now at Dortmund. You have to convince the manager that I should be on the field. We all say all the time, this guy should play. Why isn't he playing? Well, clearly, there's no manager that wants to lose. No one takes a job and goes, hey, I want to lose today, right? Like, You have to always convince the manager and his staff that you need to play. So we have to put some of this stuff on the players.
Yeah.
Right. And sometimes takes a little bit longer, but I got my fingers crossed that we get to see a start from Diego Luna against Costa Rica, and we can make an evaluation a little bit better under what Poch is asking him to do.
Well, here's a fun fact. We're going to have a special preview for the Costa Rica game on Monday's show, so we can break it down a little bit more. Hopefully have some more info from inside camp to help us understand what's happening ahead of that game. So that should be a lot of fun. All right, we're going to take our last break of this show. Call it what you want. When we come back, Felipe Cardenas is going to be joining us as well to talk a little MLS action. We'll give you a little recap of Americans abroad that happened in games that transpired today. Don't go anywhere.
Stay tuned at halftime of the AFC Divisional Playoff game for a sneak peek of 1923 Season 2, streaming February 23rd, exclusively on Paramount+.
Yes! Welcome back in to Call What You Want. Now we're going to pivot a little bit. Let's talk Americans abroad. Some notable performers today, and a big one, actually, pretty exciting. James Sands got the start for St. Pauli in their big 2-0 win over Heidenheim. Congratulations to him, sitting in the 6th spot, not playing as a center back or in the back line. Tyler Adams got an assist in Bournemouth's big win away from home against Newcastle. Now, I say assists. I'm going to put air quotes around that. He did an incredible job of blocking the passing lane, deflected the pass right into Justin Kluivert, who had an incredible finish. Assist is an assist. We'll take it. Anthony Robinson had a few of those last week. But what a performance by the Cherries, man. Unbelievable. Really well coached by Andoni Iraola. And it's nice to see Tyler get the full 90 in that. Tim Weah scored his 5th Serie A goal, baby, of the season in the 2-0 win for the Old Lady over AC Milan. He came on as a super sub and scored a fantastic goal. I know that Big Tones was covering that one, so I'll let you get into that a little bit more. But his teammate Weston McKennie played it right back in this game. I don't know what else position I think goalkeeper is the only position he has not yet played for Juventus this season. Again, 2-0 win for Juve over Milan. And then Chris Richards got his 5th start in a 2-0 win over West Ham for Crystal Palace. That is great news, and I think he is sharpening it up and being at peak Chris Richards ahead of this March window. So long may that continue for him and for all of our players that are performing and playing well. Yunus Musa on the losing end of that AC Milan game. Your thoughts overall? No Pulisic, didn't play. He was hurt. No party for Milan. Big Tones, your 2-0 win for Juve. I wasn't expecting that. They are the king of the draws this season. Oh, Big Tones is on mute.
Sorry about that, Jimmy.
Yeah, you're fine.
I have all the NFL guys behind me. I'm up at the CBS studios, and they're screaming like crazy, so I'm trying to save the listeners from hearing when they scream. Musa today was okay in that match. There were some moments where he was a little bit sloppy when he got wide. It's good that he got to start. I thought he probably, if Christian was available, he probably would have started as next to Fofana as the double 6 under Conceição. But because of all the injuries that they have, and Morata was suspended, Pulisic out, he started as a right-sided winger, if you will, in that 4-2-3-1. Was okay. There were a couple of opportunities for him to swing balls in the box. which didn't come off for him. But I think he's grown into Conceição's starting 11, which is a good thing. And I think he will be there for a little while. Pulisic was obviously a miss in that game, but Juventus on the other side, the game changed in the second half. Juventus was all over Milan in this game. They didn't have any speed up top. They put Timothy Weah in. We saw him warming up at halftime. He was a game changer. West was so good. We were actually going to do at halftime. We were going to do a highlight on West and all the opportunities he had. He had 2 bad touches in the first half. One, he was trying to make a pass over someone, but he was so smooth in that first half. He does everything. I don't know how you don't call him your MVP if you're Juventus, because every time you have a hole to fill, he plays in a different position. Today, Cambiasso, who's been rumored to – I'm worried if Cambiasso goes to where's he going to? Man City, because I just hope – I hope that West doesn't get stuck playing more left back. Like I hope that, which he'll do. Clearly he'll do, but I don't know that it's the best use of him. Weah's goal coming in from the right, kind of reminiscent of the England goal, right? Coming down the middle of the field. He makes
Wales goal.
Oh, sorry, Wales goal. Yeah. Runs and cuts to the middle field, and then he cuts to Mori a little bit. Doesn't need to get by him. He was a threat for them today. Tyler Adams, I saw that game early in the morning. The man, he just gets in good spots.
He's awesome.
He breaks up plays. He reads the game. Defensively, he's like one step ahead all the time, always trying to search out and hunt the ball and cut a lane off. Okay, he gets the assist, as you mentioned. It's not the most conventional assist, but it's an assist in the end. He broke up the play and got it there. Who else? Oh, James Sands. He's been an interesting one because since he's got the St. Paul, he's played in every game as a substitute.
Yeah,
he gets to start today.
Yeah, great.
Yeah, and that's a really good sign. That fan base there. I watched the St. Pauli game when he came on as a sub last 15 minutes. Didn't play great, but he has made no bones about the fact that this move is big for him because he thinks that this will get him in Pochettino's radar and get to the middle of the field somehow. He's a really confident kid, quiet kid, but really confident. I love the fact that he's adventurous. He'll go overseas and try and do his thing. So some good performances today. I didn't see anything from Chris Richards today. I didn't watch that game. I didn't get a chance. Tolkien, who I think was on the bench today, right? If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, Kiel lost a big one to Hoffenheim, 3-1.
That was a big match for them because Hoffenheim is stinking it up as well this year. So that was a 6-pointer. That was a 6-pointer because they're both in the relegation area. Tough one.
Yeah,
so again, more good performances and hopefully more good tomorrow.
It's all good. It's all good. All right, so we're going to hit pause right now on U.S. men's national team related news because there was a great article written by the Athletics senior writer Felipe Cardenas, and it's around Neymar and how he thinks that Neymar would be a terrible signing for MLS. So we're like, we got to get him on because this article is amazing. We want to get his thoughts and opinions as to why that's going to happen. So Felipe, thank you for joining us. Great to see you as always. One of our favorite people in the game. Tell us why Neymar would be awful for MLS.
was I too harsh? Like I felt like I could have been a little harsher, honestly. But
it's always room to be harsher. But I thought you did. Right? That's a good article. Everybody should go read it.
Well, thank you. And what's up, guys? Happy New Year to both.
What's up, Felipe?
You guys in a while. What's up, Tony? Listen, I mean, let me just say one thing. Like, I love Neymar. Like, prime Neymar, young Neymar was a phenomenal player. He is an all-time great. He will go down as one of the top 100 players of all time, I think, and he's going to probably be in that top 10 range. The skill level that he displayed at Barcelona when he came off or when he debuted at Santos, it was like ridiculous. We haven't seen players like that, I think, ever since he became like what Neymar Jr. really is. But the one thing that has always tracked his career that has stuck with him, other than the skill and the highlights and the flair, is that reputation. The reputation that perhaps he doesn't work as hard or he isn't as committed. He has injuries, and and talking to some of my buddies in Colombia over the weekend, they're like, man, Neymar, like, the one of the reasons why he has those injuries is because he just isn't fit all the time. And so that was the point of the story. It's like, if you take Neymar and you make a deal with him, or you sit at the table with him and his dad, you better be ready to pay. I mean, that's the other thing that has followed Neymar since he really moved from Barcelona to PSG, the price tag, the payments, and the deal that he's looking for. And it hasn't really tracked with the performances, I think, since 2021, when that was the last time that I saw him really be, the Neymar that we know. And so the reason why I thought it's a bad signing is because you're not going to get, in my opinion, what you're getting from Messi. And that's the only player in the world, I think, that you can compare Neymar to. And so Messi had the same doubts, right? We debated it. Is he going to come to MLS and take it easy? Is he going to have the same legendary mentality that he's shown that
he can't? Greg Berhalter is going to be checking his weight every day like he did back in Columbus, right? Like,
I mean,
that is going to be a shell shock. You're going to have Greg even wanting Neymar, knowing all the things that you've mentioned. I know he's 32, so he's still got a couple of years in there. If he wants to play, that's the big thing. Like if he decides he's going to give it a go, he's a hell of a player. But
I don't know if he wants to play. Yeah, I don't know if he really truly wants to play. He reminds me of James. I think James and Neymar are similar because they just want to play for their national teams. They want to show up when it really matters.
Right.
They don't want to train anymore. They don't want to press. They don't want that anymore. They've done it. They don't have the body and the physique for what modern football is really requiring of every player right now, even the flair players and the luxury players. And so, and the Chicago piece of it, why Chicago? Well, obviously if you listen to what Neymar has said over the last few months, he would love to play in Miami. He would love to go to Miami, play with his boys, Luis Suarez, and all the Barcelona boys, including Lionel Messi. The weather, the environment in Miami, perfect for Neymar, right? Chicago is one of the wealthiest clubs in the league. They're one of the worst clubs too, but they have one of the wealthiest owners, and it made sense for them, to just sit at the table, have a phone call. And also, guess what, Jimmy and Tony, like, everyone got what they wanted. The headlines were crazy. Sky Sports, BBC, everyone's talking about the Chicago Fire. Like, when was the last time that happened? Neymar back in the news, which is a great leverage for the deal that he's probably going to get later.
I think when Bastian Schweinsteiger got asked if he was going to win the World Cup with Chicago Fire, that was
the last time, right?
They got in the news. Now, Big Tones, I want to ask you these similar questions. I want to ask you about this. But there's some good comments. And Judge says MLS would be lucky to have Neymar, but for him, probably better if he goes back to Brazil or Europe. Okay, that's fair like that. Rafa, this might be Felipe's brother, Cardenas, says MLS will need to change the calendar to work around his sister's birthday. That's a deep threat for everybody that's familiar.
I don't have a Rafa in my family, but we're probably distant cousins. And he's right, though. I mean, you go back to the Carnival 6 years straight, Neymar made it to Carnival, which just falls right around the time of with his sister's birthday. So we know that's going to happen. And again, in MLS, I don't think that's the MLS of today. Like, if you're going to come here, and I wrote a column 2 years ago, right before the World Cup. I said, this league still is perfect and still needs these types of players like James, Messi, and Neymar. This is before Messi had even signed, but they better be willing to come and like really prove it, because now the way MLS is moving, the way the teams play, the skill level that they're going to have to adapt to. I mean, I was talking to a former MLS coach a couple of weeks ago, and he was telling me, like, some players come here, international players, and it's like, oh wow, the level's really high. And then all of a sudden in the 80th minute, all these subs happen, and the game, the skill level drops. It becomes a transition game of up and down, and that's where they're like, holy crap, like, I wasn't ready for this. And so there's a lot that goes into it that I think Neymar just wouldn't be really prepared for.
Or that excited about. He's like, wait, you want me to run? You want me to run? Big Tones, we've played with some players like that. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, look, I think I think if you can get Neymar, if Neymar plays at 80%, you got to bring him to MLS because he'd tear up the league. The guy was so good for so long, but he's got to be willing to do all the things you're talking about. And if the numbers, look, the money is irrelevant to all of us because we're not paying it in the end. Like, Joe Mansueto is the best, one of the richest and one of the best owners in the league if he gets the right people. And I think Greg Berhalter has put a staff there that is completely different than the staff that they had for the last 5 years, which I don't think, I'm pretty sure, I don't think they saw a playoff game in that time, right? And in our league, we know that sucks. That's not good. And I think he's an attraction, but you have to get all those other things right. No, you can't go to your sister's party, which he did. He did from PSG, and not only that, he lied about it, right? And had pictures there were pictures of him on whatever social media there was. I personally think if they can get him and get him for the right price, I don't think it's a Messi deal. Felipe, here's my question though about this. Do you think the Messi situation, when I say Messi, Lionel Messi situation, right? And seeing what Messi's been able to do here changes maybe his perception to be different. For example, if he were the first one to come here before Messi, it would this would be a concern. Everything you're talking about. But do you think seeing what Messi's been able to do here and how he's had to do it would change his perception? Because we know those guys are tight.
Yeah, absolutely. That's why I included like a big section of the story on Messi. Like, what was he expecting when he came down last, and what has he done since? And so, like, remember there were a lot of debates about whether Messi would care, and now he goes from winning a Leagues Cup as soon as he gets here, wins the MVP, and then leads the team after just 19 games to a Supporters' Shield and a record-breaking points record, right? So, like, that's the standard now. That's the standard for that type of player that's going to come here and have to perform. And Neymar, I don't know if he has it in him to do it. Like, I honestly don't think he would tear up the league, because I was in Qatar for the 2022 World Cup. He was one of the players that I was so excited to see in person. And you know who blew him out of the water? Vinny Jr. Like, all of a sudden I was like, wait a minute. Like, I could not keep my eyes off of Vinny Jr. because he was at a totally another level than every player on the pitch, including Neymar. And so I don't know if he has it anymore, Tony, to take over games, especially in this type of league. And then with everything around him, is he going to adapt to the players that are 22, 23 coming out of college, or international players that have never played with a Brazilian, don't know the style of play that he's used to? It's just a lot. If you can get him here, sure, but he's going to demand Messi money, the type of deal that Messi has. And who else can really make that happen in this league? It took a lot. It took a lot to get Messi to come here. It wasn't just Miami. It wasn't just MLS. You look at all the brands that had to really pony up to get him here. So I don't know if anyone can really do that again. Honestly, I'm going to be surprised to see who does it later to get a type of Messi deal.
So I saw you mentioned, like, going back to Brazil, I think towards the end of your article, right, was probably the best option for him. But can anyone in Brazil even come close to, like, he's going to play somewhere, right? Going home is always the sort of the, I don't want to say last resort. It's kind of the last thing you do, right? In South America, you go home and you play for your childhood club. Like, we've seen that story a million times. Is there anyone that can even come close to what an MLS team? I don't think he gets Messi money or Lionel Messi money or anything even close, right? But who can pay him the most? Because we know that what does he have, like 40 people in his dad's office that work for him? Like, it's a complete production. Like, he's going to go play somewhere. I mean, are they going to be able to pay him more in Brazil?
There's a couple teams, honestly. Remember, Brazil, that is the richest league in South America. Like, that's why they're dominating every cup competition. And look at Botafogo. They just won Copa Libertadores for the first time ever. They had never been that type of club. But John Textor, the American billionaire, takes the team and he just starts spending wildly. And that team was stacked. That's why they won that tournament. So there are clubs that can do it. Flamengo right now is in the news as being the team that's like somewhat linked right now to Neymar. Unfortunately, Santos isn't one of those clubs. So I don't think he'll go back to his boyhood club. Like, I think maybe someday he'll be the owner of Santos, maybe, but I don't think he'll play for Santos. And you mentioned some of the things that just swirl around Neymar. Like, to me, I didn't include in the story, but it's like, I'm implying it here. He's one of the most, like, distracted type of professionals ever. Have you seen that reel where he's like celebrating his daughter's birthday and while he's singing happy birthday, turns through his phone and like makes a bet, like he's gambling online, like while he's singing happy birthday to his daughter? Someone in the comment section replied to me the other day saying, he's like our Kardashian, a Brazilian. This is a Brazilian said, he's like our Kardashian. He's just that type of player. He is phenomenal, but there's like a Hollywood aspect around him. And so if you sign Neymar, that's what you're signing up for. So I do think Brazil will be the destination. It's going to have to be one of those big, big clubs, Palmeiras, Flamengo, Botafogo.
Okay, so Felipe, last question before we let you go. Appreciate your time. If it's not going to be Inter Miami, which I don't think it's going to be, and I don't know if he's been to Chicago, but that place is cold, so I don't know if he has any idea what he'd be walking into for a good portion of the year, and for a lot of different reasons. I love the city, but it's cold if you're not into it. And is there another potential MLS destination that would make sense? Because I guess LA and New York seem like the big markets that you could just throw out there, but like a realistic option that you've heard.
No, I mean, listen, again, when the reports really began to swirl about MLS, there were reports of 3 teams, and then that got dwindled down to just Chicago. That Chicago, according to both The Athletic, ESPN, Tom Bogert as well, it was just Chicago. And so that tells you that, first of all, that it was slim. It was really a slim, bit of a long shot for one MLS team to be in Neymar, and it happens to be Chicago for everything that we've just discussed about the market and the cold and that type of team. I think it would be LA. The LA Galaxy, reigning MLS champions, maybe they don't need Neymar. They tried Chicharito, they tried Zlatan, didn't work. They move in a totally different direction roster wise, and they win MLS Cup. So I think you don't break you don't fix what's not broken, right? But a player like Neymar is going to have to be in that type of market. Honestly, I think he's probably picked a couple teams that he would consider, and it's Miami and the LA teams.
What about Orlando with Kaká?
Well, the Brazilian community would be phenomenal. Like, that's another thing though. Would he enjoy living in Orlando in Central Florida? I mean, maybe not. Like, these players really start to tick.
He would be a king there. He'd be the king of Orlando.
Bring his sister's party to Disney. That's what you can do.
But speaking of king, like, that's why going to Brazil, like, just do that. He would be a king in Brazil. They tolerate everything that comes with the Neymar package. They love him. He is adored. He is Pele level in Brazil. And so that's why it makes the most sense. But I just think the door is closed for MLS. It would have been great when in 2021, when he absolutely bossed the Copa America, if that's when teams would have been like, what can we do to get him here? Because that was when that was before the injury.
Yeah. A lot to unpack with that. You wonder if it's a big PR move from Chicago just to be part of the headlines. Smart play.
Felipe, sorry, real quick. Does Chicago have his discovery rights?
Yeah,
they do.
Yeah, they do.
Okay.
They do.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah. Which it's a whole nother set of rules. It needs its own podcast, frankly. Felipe, thank you so much for your time, Tones.
Thanks,
Great
Felipe.
to hang out with you as always. Congrats once again on the U.S. men's national team for a big 3-1 win against Venezuela. Again, we'll come back and join you on Monday to do a preview of the next game against the Ticos of Costa Rica. Should be a lot of fun. Thank you for hanging out with us as always. We'll see you soon. Later.